You're back for part 2 on growth factor. Again, I call this channel growth factor because we're growing together. People like Marie help us grow. We're all growing and learning together, and we all come from some sort of hardship, if not multiple hardships. So I want to introduce you to Marie again, because she has such an impactful story to come from such abuse from an alcoholic mother who was a whore to triumph. Look at her. She looks beautiful. She's confident. She does, you'll hear what she does for a living. She helps so many people. And we're really hoping that you will share this story. Please, if you love part 1 and part 2, please share, because you're going to help people with loss, anxiety, doom, depression, and even belief. And for Marie to come out of such a hard situation, abuse all over the place, and have a belief system is incredible. We have so much to learn from Marie. Thank you for being here, Marie. We already talked about your near-death experience. Can you talk about your second near-death experience? Most would probably call it an out-of-body experience, and we'd love to hear it. Thanks, Marie.
So I lived in this abusive household. My mother was there, but she had moved us into this home that was very abusive, very neglectful. I was being neglected and abused every day. There was another little boy that lived there. It was Sandy Mead's son. He was a little older than me, and I remember us both just like being very afraid of her. He did as much as he could. He protected me. We did try to protect each other, and that was crazy. Like, I'm 3, I can't do much, but I would try to, protect the things around us. So there were animals that lived in the house. A dog that I remember of, it was a German Shepherd, and dog was so thin, it looked like a Doberman. It was just like, it had that body of a Doberman, but I was told later it was just really thin and malnourished, as I can imagine, because I was thin and malnourished as well. So was the little boy. It was very abusive situation. So this dog was in the garage, and everyone knew it wasn't supposed to be in the garage. So I was pulling the dog, trying to protect it, trying to keep it from getting hurt from being in the garage. So everyone was in the backyard, and it was sunny, it was warm out. It was probably spring. And everyone was in the backyard doing whatever they were doing back there. And this dog had gotten in the garage, which was left open. And so I was pulling the dog's collar, trying to get it out of the garage. And it was gnarling, and it was showing its teeth and growling at me. And it was like I was holding its leash, and it was like his face was right there. And so I just wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid of this dog. I was just like telling it, I'm trying to help you, like, get out of the garage. I don't want you to get hurt. So the dog wasn't having it. And it grabbed me by the arm right here. I still have the scar. And it whipped me around like a rag doll. I remember someone told me that it had just whipped me around like a rag doll. And like I wasn't even human. I was just being ripped like horribly by this dog, completely mauled. But he only had my arm, I guess. Like the third lash, the third head turn, I went out. And I remember following the garage, the wall of the garage, up into the corner, into the ceiling of the garage. I remember watching the corner of the garage as I'm going up. I'm literally looking at this drywall, and then I'm looking at the ceiling. It was a very strange experience, but I understand now that's an out-of-body experience. And then I remember watching that dog continue to tear apart my arm and rip my body around like that. And then I remember everyone running in. Sandy Mead came running in, and everyone was behind her, like yelling, "Get the dog off of her, this is so horrible." And I was watching from the corner of the ceiling where this drywall meets the ceiling at the top of that garage, just going, what is going on? This is so weird. And then watching that dog get beat so bad. And that's when I blacked. Like I didn't see anymore because my spirit couldn't handle that. I didn't want to see violence. I still don't. I don't want anything to do with violence. I don't want to see it. I don't want to be a part of it. So I blacked and I came back. My spirit came back and watched my child body on the surgery table, a steel surgical table. I remember so clearly this surgical table in a sterile room, and they said she's been in a coma for 3 days. And I'm still just watching my baby body on the sterile table. I'm not in it, I'm not awake. I'm asleep to the people that are around me. They just know that I'm in a coma. And the doctor is telling my family, we have like 72 hours before we have to decide if she's dead or not. Like her body will decide. There's a certain amount of time that you can be in a coma. And they're saying like, the time is ticking. She's either going to survive or she won't. And this is the second time I had died. So my spirit's like, again? Like, I've been through this once before. So it was not really, that's kind of where it ended. I just remember watching that doctor say, we've got time. She's not dead yet, but there's a certain amount of time that a person can be in a coma before they're declared dead. And so we have time, but she's getting near that hour. And so I remember just like giving the choice, you can go back or you can stay, meaning like you can stay in between, or you can you can die or you can live, basically was the question and answer. And that was really like the depth that it went into. There wasn't much more, but it was really, really strange seeing my body outside, being outside of my body and watching it, like watching my life unfold like a movie. It was very unreal.
You, Marie. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your experience. I don't think people quite understand. There are people that come from severe abuse, and some don't. Some have differing degrees of abuse. So if you're comfortable, you were in a situation, you're in a garage with a German Shepherd, that usually means you weren't really being watched. Could you tell us a little bit more about, you explained to us your mother was a whore and a drug addict. Can you explain more how she parented, the trauma you went through, whatever you're comfortable, and then also some of the triumphs? Were there people you noticed that were good? And did you absorb some of that good? Did you notice it?
Yeah. My family doesn't know that I'm doing this video. So hi, family. If you're watching, I hope you're not. But I feel so ostracized. I don't want to be that way. I don't want it to be like that. But what was the first question again?
So my question was, if you can give us more stories
parenting.
about the abuse, but also, did you notice some goodness in the world? Did people help you?
Yeah, my mother wasn't a parent. She was a bystander. I'm just drawing from my 3-year-old understanding of this. I only lived with her until I was 5, but I do remember very vividly when I finally got to go to school, I would beg. I learned the kids, like, they bring school lunches. Like, I didn't know this. I never got a school lunch. I just went to school. I didn't know. I got on a bus and I went to school and I came home and that was it. I didn't get food in the morning. I didn't get food at school. I didn't get food at home. If I got food, the school provided it. I didn't get any other food. So school, like I remember my first week on the bus realizing like this kid would pull out a cracker pack and he'd be eating cracker pack on the bus, or a girl would bring an apple and she'd have an apple on the bus. And I'm like, whoa, you have food in your backpack? Oh my gosh, that's incredible. So I learned to beg for food from kids on the bus. I'm like, I know you have food. You brought a school lunch. You can spare anything. Maybe tomorrow you could bring 2 peanut butter jelly sandwiches. And kids are starting to go like, why? Don't you get food? Like, where's your food? No, I don't get food. What do you mean? Get food? What is that? And kids like starting to put the pieces together. Kids on the bus going, wait, don't you have food at your house? No, I don't get food at my house. There's no food at my house. I don't get to get food. Like I get beaten if I ask for food. So that's crazy. And so I just remember my mother being more of a bystander. Like if I was getting beaten, she just kind of turned her head, or she would leave the house, or she just wasn't present. She wouldn't be there to watch it happen, but she had to have a place for us to live. And so it was like, that was the trade-off. I will let you beat my child, and whatever that helps you with, it gives me a free room and a free house. So that was the trade-off. The thing that really impacted me was when I went with my grandmother. I got fed 3 times a day. That was the first time that I was getting real meals. It was the first time I remember getting a bath. I really don't remember ever getting baths unless I was at grandma's house. So I was adopted by her, and the abuse started. Whenever I got adopted by her, there was a different kind of abuse. It was more emotional and like, shush, go in the other room, don't be seen. This like old version of be seen and not heard. You shouldn't be seen. That was my great grandmother's theory too. A child should be seen and not heard. And my grandma was like, you shouldn't even be seen. Just go hide in the back. It was a big house, but just go back, hide and like go watch TV or something, and then get hurt because I hadn't like done gardening or vacuumed. But I did what you told me to. I went to the back room. But my aunt was really who showed me the most impact, because she was so kind to me. And I went to live with her in my freshman year of high school, and she is my mother's sister, my mother's youngest sister. And they have a big farm, and I got to ride horses every day. And her and her husband really just showed me respect. And that was the big thing. Like, you know, if I ever popped off to them, whatever, because I'm a kid, of course I'm going to do that. If I ever popped off to them or said something or did something, they'd be like, my aunt would come to me and be like, why would you do that? That was kind of rude. Like, that was kind of awful. Why would you do that? Maybe you should think about how I feel. And so it made me start realizing that I do have an impact on people around me. And just like, I felt so safe there. And so I was safe there. It really didn't have to worry about anything. So I was happy there. It was the best year of my life, the very first best year of my life. And that was pretty crazy because it took that long to get there. And so she's the first person that really showed me what parenting should be. And I took a lot from her. And I remember even as a kid thinking like, oh, that's how a parent should be. And even now I'll say like, what would she do? In my thoughts, like, I'm scared, I need to help with parenting, whatever. I'm just thinking, what would she do? Or I'm put in a really weird situation, as we are sometimes. And I'm like, what would she do? So I'm able to draw a lot from her. She was the first really strong woman that I was able to get a lot from.
I'm so glad to hear you did have those moments and didn't just always have severity. I also want to ask you, again, in part one, you had a near-death experience where you were about 3 years old. You went under a very dusty, very oxygenless couch and you died for a while, and you were in a cave, and a being let you know that you could trust them. So I want to ask about that. But before that, I want to let everyone know why I have this channel. It's to grow together. It's called Growth Factor. So someone like Maria was put on this earth to help us, and we're all meant to help each other. And if you ever need me, my email is growthfactor.org@gmail.com. And that's my website too, growthfactor.org. And I'll put Maria's contact information at the bottom too. If you want to talk to her, something like life coaching or for interviews, just hit subscribe and the reminder bell so you'll be alerted. You'll find part one, and you can find Maria in the little arrow at the bottom of the description. But I wanted to ask Maria about her voice in this world, because they came to you at your hardest moments in a near-death experience, these beings in the darkness in a cave, and they taught you that you can trust them. How did that impact you in this world? Did you finally understand this world might be good and you could trust people?
Yeah, that took a really long time though, because the first 33 years of my life, I suffered abuse. There was about 2 years in there where I was growing up that I got some freedom. I got some freedom from abuse, but 33 years of my life, from the beginning to the 33rd birthday, I was abused. And so it was hard for me to get there to where I remember in high school, just like, I can't trust these teachers. I can't trust these adults. I can't trust these doctors. Just feeling like I can't trust adults, because every time I try to trust an adult, every time an adult tells me something bad happens. So that was a long journey to learn to trust people. And I still struggle with that. I'm sure many people deal with that, but I did recently, really did. It was very, very, very recently that I learned that there is goodness, and that there are good men in the world, and that there are good women in the world. And it actually took me a long time to realize that men can love as much as women can love. So, wow, that's hard for me to say, because I grew up always thinking that like men don't have the same motherly feelings or the same love feelings for their children that women do. I thought, like, I knew women have this like feeling of love towards their children, but I really never thought men did too, until recently. I was able to have an experience that I got to actually understand that men have feelings of love towards their children like women do. And it took me 39 years to get there. That's kind of sad in my understanding that it took me that long.
How long did it take you to believe there's something beyond this world? For example, do you believe we die or go on? Do you believe there's something called a God or light, energy, creator?
That's a really good question. My grandmother was the woman that adopted me was my grandmother, my mother's mother. She was very Catholic, very, very, very Catholic. She was there like all the time at the church, all the time. Every time the door was open, she was at the church. Very, very Roman Catholic. And I remember the very first time that I walked into that church we went in the back door. So I'm just imagine a person or a child seeing this for the very first time inside of this church. I walk in, and it's pews on each side, and there's the center aisle, and we're coming down the center aisle. I remember walking towards the front and going down to pick our seat, and just seeing this giant cross behind the altar, and this man hanging on the cross. And I remember looking up at my grandma, and I'm looking back at the cross, and looking at my grandma, and looking at the cross, and going, whoa, I know that man. I met him. I knew Jesus before I saw him on that cross. I said, I know him. I met him. But no one believed me. And I've carried that my whole life, remembering I had met him before I had seen him on that cross in that church at 5. So I had a very deep belief, I didn't understand it. I completely didn't understand it, but I knew without a shadow of a doubt that there was a God. Absolutely not a question in my mind from the time I was 3 on, maybe even younger. I just knew. I just like, a pastor I have now says, you know, when you're really hungry and when you're really tired, is when you are the closest to God, when you have that real closeness to God. And that really resonates with me as a child, because I just had this incredible closeness to God, just like, another day, you're gonna make it, just go another day, it's gonna be okay. This is all, it was an unnatural feeling of knowing there was a bigger picture, knowing there was something more than the experience I was in at that very moment. So yes, a very spiritual connection. I still do. I know there's a God, no question.
I want to ask you more about your NDE from part 1, but I do want to ask you, coming from such trauma, you may have had as a young child, teenager, or maybe today, anxiety, doom, depression, anything like that. That's what I had. That's why I do this show, is I had anxiety almost 2 years, and I didn't understand how life is even worth living, and I had to get out of it. For me, I think it was nutrition based. So I help people with that, help people with anxiety, doom, nutrition tips that helped me. So I want to know from you, did you have depression, anxiety? Do you? And how did your near-death experience help with that? Or what do you do to help yourself from those feelings?
Yeah, I think that anyone that is going through what I went through would have depression. So I went through pretty dark depression and suicidal thoughts when I was a teenager. I really was in a place of, like, it seemed like dark despair in my teenage years. I just had gone for so long with the lies and the deceit and the manipulation and so much negativity in everything that I was experiencing in my life that time. So I really did go through a pretty dark place where I really was considering suicide, very, very much planning it. And the depression lasted for a long time. It was really dark and really hard to get through. I just don't know how I got through it. I think the thing that got me through it the best was just knowing that there was a bigger picture, that this is not the end all. There's more to this. I was only, 14, 15, maybe 13 when I started getting that real severe depression. And this just sounded like everything was crashing down around me, but I just had this understanding that there was more to life than that moment. So my whole life, I've been very much blessed with an understanding of the bigger picture.
And if you don't mind, if you're comfortable, Marie, your near-death experience in part 1, you were really detailed. Is there more that you can think about? Did you hear music? Were there colors? Were there buildings? Were there animals? Is there a little more detail you can give us that you might have not shared yet?
There was no animals. There was no color. I mean, I almost want to say it was black and white, unless I was being shown the earth, or like people on the earth, or the events that were happening. But the rest just was very black and white. There were no shades. There were no There was no cold or warm. There was no smells. It was just dark or light, black or like darkness or light. There was nothing more.
And in part one, you said in your near-death experience where you were in that cave-like structure, you said you saw your past, present, and future. So I don't think you talked about your future. My question would be, do you actually know your future, or just as it comes, you say, oh, yeah, right, I already saw this. Can you tell us a little bit about your future?
I mean, maybe that does bring up a thought I had never thought of, but I have deja vu. Maybe that's some significance where I just this is the crazy thing. I was at the fair this year. It was so random. I was at the fair this year. I was using the sink to wash my hands. That's the only purpose of the sink. It wasn't attached. It was like a storage room with a sink in it. It was nothing. It wasn't attached to anything. It was just a random sink in a random storage room. I was using it to wash my hands. And I literally felt like I had gone through time and space, and I was zipped into that place right there, watching myself again, washing my hands in that sink I had never seen before. I had severe deja vu. I'm like, whoa, I have seen this sink before. So weird, because it was such a strange, like kind of dirty hallway sink or storage room sink. So strange. So I have severe deja vu like that, where I'm just like, I still don't understand why I had that deja vu. Or I kind of feel like it must be because I had been there before, or I was on the right track. I feel like whenever I get that deja vu, I was on the right track.
Did I pause? I'm trying to pause. Wait, let me pause. Marie, in part one, in your near-death experience, you said you had a memory of a past life as an abusive rich man who really lost all his friends, and he had to hire women to come, spend time with him, if you know what I mean. So my question is, some people are very uncomfortable who are listening. They'll say, no, there's no reincarnation. So let's just call it soul memory. For some reason, you remember the life of someone. Why do you think, how does that soul memory affect you today? Why did you choose this life? And it seemed like you had a big voice back then because you were a rich man. How's your voice today, and how did you find your voice, and how does that past memory affect you?
I mean, I really do still get nervous. We need to restart.
We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. We have some visitors, we have some melting tripods, but what I wanted to ask I wanted to ask if we can do a part 3, and also in part 1 and part 2, everyone listening, please in the comments, ask the questions that you want to ask Marie in part 3 about her near-death experience, about her out-of-body experience, why she often had to eat clean, fresh toilet paper, more about her mother, and how it impacted her life. How is she sitting here so successful, helping so many people, and smiling and confident and having her voice? Do you want to tell us, we have a minute and a half left, just a summary of your life, and then we'll go into part 3 another day. Thanks everyone for being here.
I do love my life now. I'm so glad that I have come as far as I have. I got to fulfill my destiny, and I got to be a surrogate, and I've been a surrogate now twice, and I'm working on a third journey. And for my profession, I'm a tax accountant, but also I'm helping children. And I'm just realizing that that's really, my heart is for children to have a better life than I could have ever had. So I am helping children with autism right now. And I'm finding that it really is just like touching a place in my heart that I didn't even fully understand the impact it would have on me as much as I am on them.
Thank you, Marie, and thank you everyone for being here. Stay tuned for part 3. We'll do it another day. We'll answer a lot more questions about Marie. fascinating life and her journey from such deep hardship and abuse to strength and finding her voice. And you can too. There's so much we can learn from Marie. Thank you for sharing your story, Marie. I really appreciate you. And I know we all do.
Thank you.